just like I would drive through a storm.
Now I'm leaving Oklahoma with a buzz and a heart on. California, open space. Don't the redwood grove. Maybe out there on that coast I will find the highway, the crossroad, the footnote, an exit I don't know. The roads I've traveled have never been straight ones. None of them are ever golden paved ones. But out here you can throw back your head. Each and every word that is said becomes a prayer, and I reckon they fall on up there to them stars, to them stars. It is a need. It isn't fixed. It is this light. It is bound to be extinguished. They led me into that longhouse. There I stood before that fire, expecting all of the while to meet some mighty chieftain. And there I was before a child. My head disappeared into the snowstorm that from her mouth was issuing forth. It is a need. It is a fix. It is the light. It is bound to be extinguished.
Okay. Test. Hello. Test. Test, test.
It's on. Good. Thanks. Thanks, Shaw. And thanks, Shaw, for having us here tonight. We appreciate it. And welcome to Ted and Tim's Tire Store Poetry Tour 1.0. And thanks to Laura Pope, who's going to accompany us on this journey tonight. We're going to be reading from our new book called Waiting for Charlie Brown. And just a little bit about the book. Waiting for Charlie Brown tells the story of two brothers who live in a trailer on the last land left from an old family farm. The non-linear narrative reveals their childhood, adolescence, and their violent, drug-infused adult existence. The poetry and prose is influenced by rough South literature, Roberto Bolaño's infrarealism, and traditional Welsh syllabic verse. There are three voices in the text, one that represents each of the author's ideas about the characters, and one that arises when narrators inadvertently become a part of the story, as you'll see. And we first met these two characters last summer. My youngest son kept telling me stories about his days as a landscaper in Watauga County and how they would go out to a job and they would be on a paved road that would turn into a gravel road, turn into a dirt road, and then practically no road at all, and then here's a mansion. And I started thinking about, you know, what happens if there is someone out there in a snowstorm going out to rob these people who are in these isolated places. And that's when these two brothers came to me, and I started writing about them and sending the poems to Ted, and he started sending me the rest of their story. And that's how our collaboration came together, and that's all I'm going to say about it. The rest is going to be our reading. So we first meet the brothers. They found the old man in the snow, a mile from his mountainside mansion. Larry said he was a big, gray-bearded guy, that he looked like Hemingway, that he had a faint smile on his face, as if he were pleased with himself, or at least amused by some inexplicable thought. And all they could think was, what was this old gator doing up here in the dead of the winter? They checked his wallet for cash. Larry gave the operator a fake name, and they left quickly in the old Bronco. For weeks, Sam and Larry watched for a blue light in the rear view, waited for a knock on their trailer door. The paper said the old man owned a chain of donut shops, that he had traveled through South America as a young man and had written an acclaimed novel, that he had left all his money to a conservatory outside Key Biscayne. You'd think he'd have had some concept of the snow, Larry said, tapping a Winston out of the pack. I just hate we never got to rob him. It's the moral of every tragedy: murder, slaughter, battle, absurdity. We are animals. Yet this truth is a heresy, a weakness, and a noble admission, a spiritual fracture in the ridgeline of our architecture, because we cannot possibly be what we are.
At the viewing, waiting for Uncle Burton's body, suddenly to sputter and lurch to life the way his old tractor did each spring. I know he is watching me when I turn on the tool shed's bare bulb swinging by that ancient cord that disappears up into that dark, raftered cathedral of bent nails, rust, and kerosene. He is whispering in the bottomland. It is not just the wind in the pines, but him. Sometimes I hear him walking in the cornfield, just a few rows in. Though I have never parted the stalks to look, I am wholly sure that it is him. Uncle Burton had found a lot of artifacts on his land, especially near the river. Old Catawba pottery sherds and arrowheads. When we were children, Uncle Burton would walk in the woods with my brother and me, and he would tell us that he could hear the Indians singing in the woods near the river. That it wasn't just the water and the rocks, but voices. That he was wholly sure it was the singing of the first people to live there. Maybe a week or two before he died, I was out at the old farm, and Uncle Burton brought up the voices. He asked me if I remembered him telling me about those Indians singing. Sure I did. My brother did too. Well, said Uncle Burton, they're still there. But if they build that goddamn highway, won't nobody be able to hear them? Maybe not ever again. The old place had been renovated, rewired, but the ghost was still there. In the timbers, his voice a loose piece of tin conversing with the westerly wind. I put the key in the tractor's ignition, but it is his hand turns it. Reaching into the Oliver's old toolbox, his arm reaches in too, to search out a block of wood, a length of chain. It was a good thing Uncle Burton had died a year ago happy. Instead of seeing the bottomland dissected by the bypass, the stream choked with debris, its special power silenced by an oily film, the soccer fields replacing tobacco, the chemicals green the turf, run off into the groundwater so that they still get cancer, those kids. Their parents doing all that driving. Used to be a night like this was filled with nothing but croakers and lightning bugs. Now it's nothing but brake lights and car horns. If man had been meant to drive, God would have made him with his middle finger eternally extended. It was a good thing Uncle Burton had died a year ago happy. Train engineers don't even blow their own whistles anymore. Sure, it's safer. The computer never forgets. Maybe all that safety will give us space to spin yarns like vibrant, transcendent spiders, orbs of energy. Or maybe we will just atrophy in a casing that lacks sweet sap, nourishment. The power company murdered the mammoth oak in the pasture, paved it over. I sold the last of the cows and became convinced that Uncle Burton had died happy a year ago.
Sam and Larry sat on the creek bank, fishing poles cradled between their legs, hooks dropped expertly into the last pool before the creek dumps its crawdads and catfish into the muddy Henry Fork. Their daddy maintained a vague interest from his beer cooler seat. Just remember, boys, that water is all there really is. Creeks creating bulging rivers, rivers hijacked into sailboat lakes. Try doing without it for a while, and you'll see, he said, turning the long neck bud up, then whistling a quirky little tune into the bottle's mouth. Sam and Larry were focused on the bobbing floats, the delightful syrupy taste of the rare cokes that Daddy had brought for this afternoon when he had taken them out of school for a little fishing. They already knew before the sun sank over the old man Goodman's willows that they may have to throw him in the bed of the pickup, and already, inside the fisherman's silence that they struggled to maintain, an argument was growing over who would get to drive. They sat in the Baptist church parking lot, making their plan. Sam would grab an armload of records and dash from the curb market where the aisle opened straight to the door and Larry's waiting Scirocco. Sam flipped through the albums. He wanted all the Kiss and the Skinnerd, and if he could manage to move them to the P's, he'd grab that Poco that had rows of Cimarron. Outside, Larry was watching for cops, thinking they shouldn't have smoked that last joint at the church. When Sam came hoofing out the door, the bell jangling as he leapt through toward the car, his arms stacked with a whole hack of records, the market clerk in pursuit, his red apron flapping as Larry shoved the car door open, and Sam stumbled, fell head first into the seat. When Larry popped the clutch, the car door swung wide open, catching the clerk in his knee, his face, and his arm. They barked rubber till they left Highland and headed south toward their Hog Hill trailer. Excited, they examined their booty. Some Skinnerd, the Poco, a band called Steely Dan, 1 Kiss, and 10 copies of KC and the fucking Sunshine Band.
The box. Of course it was in the box. The drugs, whatever Sam had at the time. Shrooms, painkillers, coke, acid, pot. He always had pot and whatever else, they were always in the box. But Sam loved to play games. He fucked with every one of his customers, as far as the 3 visitors knew, but they didn't know anything really. If they knew anything, they wouldn't have even come there tonight. In the box, said Sam. He ceased drumming his fingers on the lid and opened it. Sam looked into the box. The 3 visitors wanted to look in, but they were on the other side of the room. Sam always kept the lid between his visitors and himself, and the box was deep. They had bought drugs from Sam at least 100 times, and yet they had never seen inside of the box. It wasn't something these types gave a lot of thought to usually. Usually visitors were preoccupied with scoring their drugs and leaving, fleeing almost. What now, thought the 3 visitors. Sam was laughing a little, but wide-eyed. Well, you know what? What now, they thought. I caught a timber rattler trying to sun up on my back porch this morning, and since I didn't want him hibernating under this trailer and coming up a vent, I decided to do a catch and release. But I didn't have nothing good to hold him in, except this box. I figure he's pretty harmless in there. Tomorrow I'm going to take him over to the mountain and let him loose. But tonight he's in there. And if you want a little pot, you got to reach in there and get it for yourself. No way will suit yourself. I'd smoke some with you, but you got to be the one to fish around in there and pull out that ounce. I'll cut you out a quarter bag free of charge. I'm not getting killed for a quarter bag of weed, said Ben. What do you mean by fish around? Well, I ain't let you see in the box, but if you want to reach around the lid and into it, I'll tell you if you're getting warm or cold. But don't go feeling around too much. Just get the ounce. That's crazy, said Ben. Let's go. It ain't so bad, said Sam. He's asleep right now. Been in the dark all day. Asleep, huh? You can't be serious. Simon, you're crazy if you reach in there. Well, I ain't going to die for a quarter bag. Okay, half an ounce. That still don't sound right to go risking my life with a snake, a sleeping snake, a poisonous snake. Venomous would be more accurate. Suit yourself, suit yourself. Simon, I want to smoke some pot, said Kelly, standing up and stretching. Simon had been showing off for her by pretending to consider the offer. Now, looking at her long legs, he was seriously considering reaching into the box. Simon's mind wasn't even coming around to ask how unlikely it would be for Sam to go driving around with the box. None of them had ever actually seen the box anywhere but where it now sat on the floor of his trailer. Suddenly, Kelly said, I'll do it. I want to smoke some pot. I hope the snake will keep sleeping, though. Never tried that. Usually anywhere I put my hands, the snake is waking up. Sam almost looked surprised. The boys shouted their protest. No way, you can't let her. Sam eyed her up and down while holding the lid of the box half closed. Well then, come here. No way. Simon grabbed her arm. Simon Tripp, you better let go of me. Let her go, said Sam. The boy let go of her arm. Come here, darling. She took a step towards him. The boys both inhaled and held their breath. Shelley crouched down. The lid of the box hid the bottom half of Sam's face from her. He looked down into the box. Okay, reach on around. Reach in slowly. She reached around the lid and ever so slowly lowered her hand into the box. What the fuck are you doing? Simon protested. Hush, dumbass. You want to wake up the snake? Sam looked up and caught her eye for a moment. He looked back down. The tip of her finger was touching the corner of one of the hundreds of sealed packets that contained 2 Vicodin each that had been liberated from some outpatient surgery facility or old age home. Right now you're cold, said Sam. Go and let your fingers do the walking. Her fingers moved hesitantly across the landscape they detected. She made faces as though trying to process each thing. Mostly it was the packets, their sharp corners sticking up like a mountain range. She felt something new, suddenly familiar, bubble wrap. He shook his head. Not for you, darling, cold. Her fingers continued across the landscape. Colder, warmer, warmer. Either way, oh baby, you're red hot. Sam was splitting up the pot and Kelly was leaning kind of close to him. Simon began to think unclearly. Sam had made him more than look just foolish. He had made him look foolish in front of Kelly, and then he tried to sidle right up to her. He took a large glass ashtray and hit Sam in the back of the head with it. Sam went down on his knees, but managed to grab the edge of the table. Oh shit, Simon, he is gonna fuck you up. Fuck him, I am fucking him up now, said Simon, and kicked Sam in the side of the head. There was a crack like dry pine splitting, and Sam managed